The crystal chandelier crashed down just inches from where Lucy stood, glass shards exploding across the marble floor. "You think he'll ever choose someone like you?" Catherine hissed, the gun trembling in her manicured hand. Behind them, Henry's voice boomed through the speakers, announcing his decision that would change everything. Lucy placed her hand protectively over her swollen belly. The miracle baby doctors said was impossible, as she stared down the barrel of Catherine's hatred. Henry Montgomery stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, staring at the Manhattan skyline, as if it might offer solutions to the bombshell his doctor had just dropped. At 35, he'd built Montgomery Tech into a 78-year-old billion empire. But now his perfectly controlled world was crumbling around him. 6 months, maybe less, Dr. Patterson had said, avoiding eye contact. The condition is progressing faster than we anticipated. After that, the probability of you fathering children naturally or even through standard procedures drops to essentially zero. Henry's reflection in the glass looked foreign to him. Same impeccable custom suit, same confident posture, but his eyes held something new, fear. He ran his hand through his dark hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty for a man Forbes had nicknamed the Calculator for his emotionless precision in business. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Montgomery, your lawyer is here." "Send him in," Henry replied, his voice betraying none of the turmoil inside him. Lawrence Blackwell entered, briefcase in hand. At 68, he'd been the Montgomery family attorney since before Henry was born. "Tell me again about my grandfather's will, Lawrence, every detail." Lawrence sighed, sitting in one of the leather chairs. "Your grandfather was traditional, Henry. The amendment he added states that if you reach 40 without direct biological descendants, controlling interest in Montgomery Tech transfers to Charles." Henry's jaw tightened. His cousin Charles, reckless, entitled, and vindictive, would destroy everything he'd built. "And there's no way around it. I've examined every angle for the past decade," Lawrence said. "It's ironclad." Henry returned to his desk, pressing a button that dimmed the office windows. A holographic display illuminated, showing a complex flowchart he'd been working on since leaving the doctor's office. "Then I need to have children, multiple children, to ensure at least one survives to adulthood." Lawrence stared at the diagram in growing disbelief. "Henry, you can't approach having children like a corporate acquisition, can't I?" Henry enlarged a section labeled Project Heirs with a gesture. "I need 10 suitable women, intelligent, healthy, with impeccable genetic backgrounds. They'll be well compensated, 50 million each, to carry my biological children. I'll establish a trust for each child, ensuring their financial future regardless of their mother's decisions." "This is unprecedented." "So is my situation," Henry replied coldly. "I've already lined up a medical team specializing in fertility treatments and have purchased a property in the Hamptons where the mothers can stay during their pregnancies." Lawrence looked troubled. "And afterward? What kind of father will you be to these children?" Henry's expression remained unreadable. "A financially responsible one. I wasn't raised with affection, Lawrence, and I turned out perfectly capable." "That's debatable," Lawrence muttered. Henry ignored him. "I'll need a household manager for the Hamptons property. Someone discreet, efficient, who can handle the unique circumstances. No one in your regular staff?" "No. This requires someone without pre-existing loyalties within my organization. Have HR start the search immediately. I need candidates by the end of the week." As Lawrence left, Henry returned to the window. Below, millions of lives played out in chaotic patterns, people making irrational decisions based on emotions he'd learned to suppress long ago. His life had always been meticulously plotted, strategic moves on a chessboard of his own design. He pulled out his phone, opening the dating profile his PR team had created for him years ago, a profile he'd never used. Women had always been a distraction, a complication he couldn't afford while building his empire. Now, ironically, he needed them. Across town, in a small Brooklyn apartment, Lucy Sanders hung up the phone with trembling hands. The hospital's financial department had been clear. Without a substantial deposit by the end of the month, her sister Tess would lose her place on the transplant list. Lucy looked at the stack of past-due medical bills covering their tiny kitchen table, then at the framed photo of herself and Tess at the beach last summer, before the kidney failure had stolen her sister's vitality. At 28, Tess looked 40, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by dialysis and constant pain. "Who was that?" Tess called weakly from her bedroom. "Wrong number," Lucy lied, forcing cheerfulness into her voice. She wouldn't burden her sister with more worries. Lucy opened her laptop, scanning through job listings one more time. With her background in household management and service industry experience, she'd applied to dozens of positions, but nothing paid enough to cover both their rent and Tess's mounting medical expenses. A new listing caught her eye. Household manager, Hampton's estate, immediate start, exceptional compensation. The salary listed made her blink twice to ensure she wasn't seeing things. It was more than she'd make in 5 years at her current wage. Too good to be true? Probably. But desperation didn't allow for skepticism. She clicked, apply now, just as Tess called out again, her voice weaker this time. Coming, Lucy said, closing the laptop. She didn't allow herself to hope as she went to care for her sister. Hope was a luxury she couldn't afford. But for the first time in months, a tiny spark of possibility flickered in the darkness of their circumstances. Neither Henry nor Lucy could have imagined how their carefully calculated plans were about to collide, or how that collision would change everything they thought they knew about wealth, worth, and what truly matters in a world where some things remain stubbornly beyond control. Lucy sat in the sleek waiting room of Montgomery Tower, feeling painfully out of place among the fashionable executives gliding by. Her interview outfit, purchased second-hand and carefully pressed, suddenly seemed shabby compared to the designer suits surrounding her. Her phone vibrated. Another text from the hospital. Payment reminder for Teresa Sanders. She closed, her eyes briefly, the weight of responsibility crushing her chest. Last night, Tess had coughed up blood again, her thin body convulsing in Lucy's arms as she whispered reassurances she didn't believe. Miss Sanders, a polished receptionist, appeared. Follow me. Lucy was led through a labyrinth of glass and steel to a conference room where 5 people waited. 4 women in identical dark suits sat on one side, their expressions professionally blank. At the head stood Henry Montgomery himself, taller in person than in his photos, his steel-grey eyes assessing her with cold calculation. Please sit, he said, voice crisp and businesslike. For the next 40 minutes, the panel fired questions about her experience managing households. Lucy answered honestly, avoiding mentioning why she desperately needed this position. When asked about her willingness to sign extensive confidentiality agreements, she nodded without hesitation. And why should we choose you over candidates with more prestigious backgrounds? This from a hawk-faced woman introduced as Ms. Winters, HR Director. Before Lucy could respond, the doors burst open, revealing a young man whose resemblance to Henry was striking, though his disheveled appearance and cocky grin stood in stark contrast. Cousin? Planning another hostile takeover without me? He laughed, dropping uninvited into an empty chair. Charles? Henry's voice turned glacial. This is a private meeting. Nothing's private in family, Hank. Charles winked at Lucy. Especially with our shared deadline approaching. Nice to meet you, sweetheart. Charles Montgomery, the fun cousin. Lucy saw Henry's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Ms. Sanders, excuse us? Henry nodded to the HR team. Continue the interview downstairs. I'll join shortly. As she was escorted out, Lucy heard Charles's voice. Another of your little projects? Or is she actually special? In a smaller office downstairs, Lucy waited, her heart racing. She calculated how many months of Tess's treatment the first paycheck would cover if she got this job. The door opened, and Henry entered alone, his expression unreadable. Your references describe you as discreet and efficient, he said without preamble. The position I'm offering requires exceptional discretion. I understand confidentiality, Mr. Montgomery. He studied her, then asked unexpectedly, why do you need this job, the truth? Lucy hesitated. She never discussed Tess with strangers. Her sister's dignity mattered too much. But something in Henry's direct gaze compelled honesty. My sister has end-stage renal disease. She needs a transplant we can't afford without insurance. I'm her only family. Henry's expression didn't change, but he seemed to reassess her. The Hamptons' position involves managing a household for 10 special guests. Their privacy is paramount. The compensation package includes comprehensive medical benefits for immediate family. Lucy's heart stuttered. Medical benefits? Full coverage, say effective immediately upon acceptance. Tears threatened. Lucy blinked them back, maintaining composure. I'm qualified for this position, Mr. Montgomery. My circumstances make me committed, not compromised. Henry nodded once. The position is yours if you want it. I do, she answered, voice steady despite the hope flooding her chest. Good. You'll receive details from HR. We move quickly, Ms. Sanders. As Henry stood to leave, his phone rang. When he answered, Lucy saw something she wouldn't have thought possible, the composed billionaire faltering. When? He asked, face paling. I'll be right there. He ended the call, looking momentarily lost. Is everything all right? Lucy asked instinctively. Henry seemed surprised by her question, as if remembering she was there. My grandfather, he's had a stroke. Without thinking, Lucy said softly, I'm sorry. Family is everything. Something flickered in Henry's eyes. Recognition, perhaps. He nodded curtly and left. 3 days later, Lucy stood in the breathtaking foyer of Orchid House, the Hamptons estate where she'd live and work for the next year. With Tess now settled in a private room at Manhattan's best kidney center, courtesy of her new benefits package, Lucy could focus on the mysterious project ahead. As she explored the mansion's 42 rooms, she wondered about these special guests she'd be managing. The staff quarters were surprisingly luxurious, though her belongings looked pitiful unpacked in the spacious room. Her phone chimed. A message from Tess's new doctor. First treatment successful. Transplant evaluation next week. Lucy pressed the phone to her heart, overwhelmed by gratitude and fear. Whatever strange situation she'd walked into, she'd make it work. She had to. From the doorway came a throat-clearing sound. Lucy turned to find Henry Montgomery watching her, his expression guarded. Ms. Sanders, there's something important you need to know about this project before it begins. Lucy straightened her shoulders, ready for whatever revelation would follow. I'm listening, Mr. Montgomery. Henry gestured for Lucy to follow him into the estate's library, a 2-story room lined with leather-bound books. He closed the mahogany doors behind them and activated a panel that dimmed the windows. What I'm about to share requires absolute confidentiality, he said, his voice clinical. If you find the arrangement objectionable, you'll be compensated for your time and can leave immediately. Lucy's stomach knotted. What had she gotten herself into? I'm establishing Project Heirs. Henry's words were measured. Due to a medical condition, I have a limited window to father children. 10 women will be arriving next week to serve as surrogate mothers. They'll live here during their pregnancies and receive $50 million each for their participation. Lucy fought to keep her expression neutral despite her shock. And my role? You'll manage their needs and the estate. Nothing more, nothing less. You won't be involved in the medical aspects. Something in his detached tone bothered Lucy. These children, your children, what happens after they're born? They'll be raised properly with all advantages money can provide. Henry's expression remained unreadable. Their mothers may choose their level of involvement. Lucy thought of Tess, of their own childhood after their parents died, how love had mattered more than comfort. But Tess's treatment depended on this job, I understand, Mr. Montgomery. Henry seemed surprised by her acceptance. You have questions? It's not my place to judge, Lucy replied simply. For a moment, something like respect flickered in Henry's eyes. The women arrive Saturday. They're exceptional in every way. Accomplished, intelligent, perfectly suited to bear superior children. Lucy nodded, wondering what kind of man viewed parenthood as a business transaction. One more thing, Henry added. Under no circumstances are you to discuss my medical condition with anyone, especially my cousin Charles. Of course not, sir. As Henry left, Lucy exhaled slowly. She could do this, manage a household of surrogates for a billionaire's dynasty. For Tess, she could do anything. By Saturday morning, Lucy had prepared each suite according to detailed profiles provided by Henry's assistant. 10 women, each accomplished in their field, would occupy the estate's east wing. The first arrival, Catherine Wellington, swept in at precisely 9 a.m., her blonde hair arranged in an elegant chignon. As Lucy welcomed her, Catherine's eyes narrowed. You're the help? She asked, her British accent making the word sound especially demeaning. I'm Lucy Sanders, the house manager. Catherine removed her sunglasses, revealing cold blue eyes. My suite, the Sapphire Suite as requested. Your preference for fresh flowers and classical music has been arranged. Catherine handed Lucy her coat without looking at her. Fine. Mr. Montgomery will be joining us when? This evening for dinner, Lucy responded, maintaining her professionalism despite Catherine's dismissive tone. Over the next hours, the remaining women arrived. Victoria Chen, a tech entrepreneur with 3 patents to her name. Sophie Lamont, a concert pianist whose delicate, Appearance belied her sharp wit. Dr. Elizabeth Parker, a neurosurgeon whose handshake was firm and assessing. The others followed, each beautiful, accomplished, and intimidating in their own way. Lucy showed each woman to her suite, explaining the estate's amenities and the evening's schedule. Most barely acknowledged her presence, too busy appraising their competition. By afternoon, Lucy caught whispers of an unspoken hierarchy forming, with Catherine and Victoria vying for dominance. As she arranged fresh flowers in the dining room, their voices drifted from the adjacent lounge. Montgomery's worth nearly 80 billion, Catherine was saying. Even split 10 ways, the inheritance potential is staggering. This isn't just about money, Victoria countered. Think of the genetic advantages our children will have. Speak for yourself, Catherine laughed coldly. I have no intention of playing mommy once I've secured my 50 million. There are excellent boarding schools for that. Lucy's hands stilled on the roses. These women viewed children as investments, just as Henry did. That evening, dressed in a simple black dress, the fanciest thing she owned, Lucy oversaw the welcome dinner. Henry arrived precisely at 7, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit. The women transformed in his presence, each showcasing their most charming selves. During the elaborate meal, Lucy moved discreetly around the periphery, ensuring everything ran smoothly while remaining invisible, a skill she'd perfected through years in service positions. As she replaced an empty wine bottle, Catherine deliberately knocked her water glass over, splashing Lucy's dress. "Oh dear," Catherine said, with false concern. "Clumsy help is so tiresome." Lucy felt eyes on her, some amused, some indifferent, one pair thoughtful. Henry's. "No harm done," Lucy said quietly, dabbing at her dress. Later, as Lucy served coffee in the drawing room, Henry presented each woman with a thick contract. "Ladies, these agreements outline every aspect of our arrangement. Take tonight to review them. My lawyer will address questions tomorrow." Lucy slipped away to check her phone. A message from Tess's doctor made her heart sink. The latest treatment hadn't worked as hoped. The transplant was more urgent than ever. Returning to the kitchen, Lucy found Sophie, the pianist, sitting alone, contract open before her, tears streaming down her face. "Are you all right, Miss Lamont?" Lucy asked gently. Sophie looked up, seemingly surprised by the kindness in Lucy's voice. "I'm doing this for my mother's cancer treatments," she confessed. "The contract, it's so cold. These babies will be commodities." Lucy hesitated, then sat beside her. "Children have a way of being more than anyone expects." Sophie wiped her tears. "Why are you here, in this strange situation?" "My sister needs a kidney transplant," Lucy admitted. "Sometimes we make difficult choices for those we love." A throat cleared in the doorway. Both women turned to find Henry standing there, expression unreadable. "Miss Sanders," a word. Lucy followed him to his study, prepared for dismissal for fraternizing with a guest. "You broke protocol," he said flatly. "I apologize, Mr. Montgomery." His eyes studied her with unsettling intensity. "Why?" Lucy met his gaze. "Because sometimes people need simple kindness." Something shifted in Henry's expression. So briefly Lucy thought she'd imagined it. "Good night, Mrs. Sanders." As Lucy walked to her room, she felt the weight of what lay ahead. 10 women, 10 babies, one cold billionaire playing God. And somehow she was caught in the middle of it all. 3 weeks into Project Heirs, Orchid House had transformed into a luxurious prison of tension and competition. The medical procedures had begun, each woman receiving personalized treatment from Henry's team of fertility specialists. Lucy maintained the estate with quiet efficiency, becoming adept at avoiding Catherine's deliberate cruelty and Victoria's cold calculation. Late one evening, Lucy sat, alone in the kitchen, reviewing Tess's latest medical report. The new treatment protocol was helping, but her sister's spirits were declining with each passing day of confinement in the hospital. "Miss Sanders?" Lucy jumped, hastily wiping away tears. Henry Montgomery stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Mr. Montgomery, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you come in." She straightened, professional mask slipping back into place. "Is everything all right?" His question seemed mechanical, practiced rather than genuine. "Yes, sir, just reviewing some personal matters." Lucy tucked her sister's medical report away. "Can I get you something? Tea, perhaps?" Henry hesitated, as if unused to casual conversation. "Actually, I was heading to the greenhouse. I find it helps me think." "The orchid collection is beautiful," Lucy offered. "I've been tending them when the regular gardener isn't here." Something flickered in Henry's eyes. Surprise, perhaps. You know about orchids. My mother worked in a botanical garden. She taught me before she passed. Henry seemed to make a decision. Would you show me what you've done with them? Lucy followed him through the moonlit grounds to the sprawling glass structure. Inside, hundreds of rare orchids created a fragrant paradise. She moved confidently among them, explaining the adjustments she'd made to their care. This Paphiopedilum was struggling, she said, indicating a delicate slipper orchid. It needed less direct light than it was getting. Henry studied the plant. My grandfather started this collection. I've maintained it, but I lack his intuitive understanding. Plants respond to more than just technical care, Lucy said, then caught herself. I'm sorry, that sounds presumptuous. No, Henry said quietly. My grandfather used to say something similar. For a moment, the billionaire looked almost human, less the cold calculator and more a man with memories and perhaps regrets. The peace shattered at the sound of heels on the stone path. Catherine appeared in the doorway looking elegant despite the late hour. There you are, Henry. Her voice was honey-sweet, but her eyes flashed when they landed on Lucy. Having the staff work overtime? Lucy stepped away from Henry. I was just finishing, Ms. Wellington. Good night, Mr. Montgomery. As she slipped past Catherine, the blonde woman whispered, Know your place, little mouse. The following week brought news that made Lucy's world tilt on its axis. The hospital called. Tess had contracted a dangerous infection, her weakened immune system struggling to fight it off. They needed to accelerate the transplant timeline. There's a compatible donor available, the doctor explained, but there's a substantial additional cost not covered by insurance for expedited procedures. Lucy's head swam with panic. Even with her generous salary, she couldn't possibly afford the astronomical sum on such short notice. That evening, as the women gathered for dinner, Lucy moved through her duties in a fog of fear. She barely registered Catherine's latest barbed comments or Victoria's calculating stare. All she could think about was Tess, alone and failing in her hospital bed. Miss Sanders, is something wrong with the wine? Henry's voice cut through her thoughts. Lucy realized she'd been standing frozen, bottle in hand. I apologize, sir. As she poured, her hand trembled slightly, causing a drop to spill onto the tablecloth. Catherine laughed softly. Perhaps the help needs replacing. Competence is so rare these days. Lucy felt rather than saw Henry's gaze on her. When dinner concluded, he requested her presence in his study. Your performance tonight was below standard, he said without preamble when the door closed behind them. I apologize, Mr. Montgomery. It won't happen again. What's happened? His directness surprised her. Lucy hesitated, then decided honesty was her only option. My sister's condition has worsened. She needs an expedited transplant procedure. I see. Henry's expression remained inscrutable. And this procedure costs. Lucy named the figure, watching Henry register that it represented years of her salary, even at her current generous rate. I have some savings, she said quickly. And I can take a loan. I'll cover it. Lucy stared at him, disbelieving. Mr. Montgomery, I couldn't possibly consider it an advance or a bonus for your discretion regarding Project Heirs. Pride warred with desperation in Lucy's chest. I don't want charity. It's not charity, Henry said sharply. It's a transaction. Your sister gets her treatment, and I retain a house manager who isn't distracted by personal crises. His framing was cold, yet Lucy sensed something else beneath it, something he himself might not recognize. Thank you, she said simply. Henry nodded once. I'll have my assistant arrange it tomorrow. As Lucy turned to leave, Henry added, the greenhouse. After 10 p.m., I'd like to continue our conversation about the Paphiopedilum collection. The nighttime greenhouse meetings became an unexpected ritual. For an hour each evening, Henry and Lucy would discuss the orchids and gradually other things. He asked about Tess's recovery. She learned about his isolated childhood. One night, Henry arrived looking particularly strained. The first round of inseminations had yielded only 4 confirmed pregnancies: Catherine, Victoria, Sophie, and Elizabeth. Time is running out, he admitted, gazing at a particularly rare orchid. I never anticipated failure on this scale. Is that how you see it? Failure? Lucy asked gently. What else would you call it? Life, she suggested. It has its own timeline, its own wisdom. Henry looked at her strangely. You're unlike anyone in my usual circles, Ms. Sanders. Lucy, she corrected, then blushed at her presumption. Lucy, he repeated. the name sounding different in his voice. Their eyes met across the orchids, and for one suspended moment, something, electric and unnamed, passed between them. The moment shattered as Catherine's voice called from the main house. Lucy stepped back, remembering her place. She was the help, nothing more, and Henry was a man with a plan that had nothing to do with house managers from Brooklyn. "Good night, Mr. Montgomery," she said softly, slipping away before he could respond. What Lucy didn't see was Henry watching her leave, his expression troubled by emotions he'd spent a lifetime suppressing. 3 months into Project Heirs, Orchid House hummed with the uneasy energy of forced cohabitation. The 4 pregnant women, Catherine, Victoria, Sophie, and Elizabeth, reveled in their elevated status, while the remaining 6 underwent increasingly desperate medical interventions. Lucy observed how the dynamics shifted, with Catherine emerging as the undisputed queen of the hierarchy. Tess's transplant had gone well, thanks to Henry's intervention, but recovery was proving difficult. During Lucy's weekly visit to the hospital, her sister looked alarmingly frail against the white sheets. "You're not telling me everything about this job," Tess whispered, her voice weak but her gaze penetrating. "Who exactly is this billionaire you work for?" Lucy squeezed her hand. "Just rest and focus on getting better." "Luce, I'm worried. You've got that same look you had when you dropped out of college to take care of me, that I'm sacrificing everything." "Look, it's just a job," Lucy insisted. "A good one that's helping you get better." Tess's eyes filled with tears. "I hate being your burden." "You have never been a burden," Lucy said fiercely. "You're my sister, my family, my everything." Later, as Lucy drove back to the Hamptons, she couldn't shake Tess's concerned expression. Was she becoming too emotionally invested in Henry Montgomery? Their nightly greenhouse conversations had evolved into something she looked forward to, with an intensity that frightened her. When she returned to Orchid House, chaos greeted her. Victoria was screaming at one of the household staff, her face contorted with rage. "What's happening?" Lucy asked, stepping between them. "Someone has been in my suite," Victoria hissed. "Things are missing." Lucy calmed the situation, promising a thorough investigation. By dinner, similar complaints had emerged from 3 other women. Small items had disappeared: a diamond earring, an antique locket, a gold bracelet. Catherine watched the commotion with calculating eyes. "Perhaps staff should be questioned first," she suggested smoothly. "They do have access to our rooms." Her gaze landed meaningfully on Lucy. That evening, Henry arrived unexpectedly. Lucy briefed him on the situation in his study. "I'll have security." "Review the footage," he said. "This kind of discord isn't acceptable." "The women are already under enormous pressure," Lucy noted. "The unsuccessful candidates especially." Henry paced, looking more agitated than Lucy had ever seen him. "The second round of procedures begins tomorrow. We need 5 more viable pregnancies at minimum. And if that doesn't happen, it must." Lucy studied him. "What happens if it doesn't? If your plan fails? Then I lose everything." His admission hung in the air between them. "My cousin takes control on my 40th birthday. He'll dismantle everything I've built. Is that all that matters? The empire?" Henry stopped pacing, his expression confused, as if no one had ever questioned his priorities. "What else is there?" The vulnerability in his question caught Lucy off guard. Before she could respond, Catherine entered without knocking. "Henry, I need to speak with you." Her eyes narrowed at Lucy. "Alone?" Lucy excused herself, feeling Catherine's hostile gaze follow her out. The next morning, the house erupted in fresh chaos. Catherine stood in the grand foyer holding a ruby brooch. "Found in the staff quarters," she announced triumphantly. "In Lucy Sanders's room." Lucy froze, stunned. "That's impossible. I didn't take anything." Security was called. The brooch belonged to Elizabeth, who looked uncertainly between Catherine and Lucy. "I never went into your suite, Dr. Parker," Lucy said desperately. Henry arrived amid the commotion. "What's happening?" Catherine stepped forward. "Your trusted house manager has been stealing from us, Henry. We found this in her room." Lucy felt the blood drain from her face as Henry's eyes met hers. Something flickered there. Doubt, before his expression closed off. "My office," he said tersely. "Both of you." Inside, Catherine presented her case with practiced precision. The missing items, the convenient timing of Lucy's hospital visits, her financial problems. "And there's more," Catherine added, her voice dripping with false concern. "I've discovered something about her family." She produced a folder. "Her mother worked for your family years ago, Henry. She was dismissed for theft. Like mother, Like, daughter, Lucy gasped. That's a lie. My mother was a gardener at the Botanical Gardens, not Ella Sanders, Catherine continued smoothly. Fired from Montgomery Estate 25 years ago for stealing jewelry from your grandmother. Lucy felt the floor tilting beneath her. Her mother had indeed worked for a wealthy family before Lucy was born, but had never spoken of it. Mr. Montgomery, I've never stolen anything in my life, Lucy said, her voice shaking. I don't know how that brooch got in my room, but I didn't put it there. Henry's expression was unreadable. Catherine, leave us. When they were alone, Henry's voice was cold. Is it true about your mother? I don't know, Lucy admitted. She never talked about her past, but I know she was honest, and so am I. Then, how do you explain the brooch? Someone planted it. The realization dawned as she spoke. Catherine has hated me from the beginning. Henry studied her with those penetrating gray eyes. Why would she do that? Because she sees how you... Lucy stopped herself. Because she's territorial about her position here. A tense silence filled the room. Lucy felt tears threatening, but refused to let them fall. She'd spent a lifetime being judged unfairly because of her background, her circumstances. I should pack my things, she said finally. No. Henry's response surprised her. Stay until the investigation is complete. You don't believe me, Lucy realized, the hurt sharp and unexpected. I believe in evidence, Henry replied, not emotions. The cool words stung more than they should. Of course, you're the calculator after all. She turned to leave, dignity intact despite the unfair accusation. Lucy, her name stopped her at the door. I want to believe you. She looked back at him, seeing conflict in his eyes. But you don't. Not really. Because in your world, people like me are always suspect, and people like Catherine are always credible. That night, alone in her room, Lucy received a text from Tess's doctor. New complications had arisen. Without ongoing specialized care, her sister could reject the transplant. Lucy curled into herself, finally allowing the tears to fall. She'd lost Henry's trust, her reputation, and soon, perhaps her sister. The walls she'd built to protect herself crumbled as she wept silently into her pillow. Outside her door, unknown to her, Henry stood with his hand raised to knock. He'd reviewed the security footage himself and found a disturbing gap during the time Catherine claimed to have discovered the brooch. But doubt still plagued him. Doubt born of a lifetime of trusting calculations over instincts. He lowered his hand without knocking and walked away, leaving Lucy alone with her unjust suffering. For 3 days, Lucy performed her duties under a cloud of suspicion. The women watched her with wary eyes, Catherine with barely concealed triumph. The greenhouse remained dark at night. Henry no longer came for their conversations among the orchids. On the 4th morning, Lucy received devastating news. Tess had developed a severe infection, and her body was showing signs of rejecting the transplant. The specialized medication she needed wasn't covered by insurance, and the cost was astronomical. With trembling hands, Lucy dialed Henry's office, but his assistant informed her coldly that Mr. Montgomery was unavailable to staff. The message was clear. Her special access had been revoked. That afternoon, while supervising lunch service, Lucy overheard Catherine and Victoria speaking in the drawing room. The second round worked brilliantly, Catherine was saying. My doctor confirmed yesterday, twins. Henry will be pleased. That makes 7 successful pregnancies, Victoria replied. Though I hear Sophie is having complications, Lucy felt a pang of concern for the gentle pianist, who had become increasingly withdrawn. Weak constitution, Catherine dismissed. Did you see Montgomery's face when I revealed the Sanders family history? Priceless. Victoria laughed softly. That brooch was a stroke of genius. The little mouse never suspected a thing when I slipped into her room. Lucy froze, heart pounding. They had framed her deliberately. Henry was getting far too familiar with the help, Catherine continued. Those greenhouse meetings, pathetic. He needs someone of his own class. Someone like you, naturally. Carrying his heir gives me leverage, but eliminating the competition ensures my position. Lucy stepped back quietly, mind racing. She had proof of her innocence now, but why would Henry believe her word against theirs? She needed evidence. That evening, Lucy went to Sophie's suite, ostensibly to deliver fresh towels. The pianist sat by the window, her slim hand resting protectively over her slightly rounded belly. Ms. Lamont, are you feeling all right? Lucy asked gently. Sophie's eyes were red-rimmed. The doctor says the baby's heartbeat is irregular. They're monitoring me closely. Lucy set down the towels. I'm sorry to hear that. Catherine said it's because I'm weak. Sophie's voice broke. That I don't deserve to be a Montgomery mother. Something in Lucy snapped. Catherine Wellington is cruel and manipulative. She planted that brooch in my room. Sophie looked up sharply. I suspected as much. She and Victoria have been inseparable lately, whispering and stopping whenever anyone approaches. Would you tell Mr. Montgomery what you've observed? Sophie's face paled. I can't risk my position. My mother's treatment depends on this money. Lucy understood completely. I wouldn't ask you to risk that. As she turned to leave, Sophie called softly, Lucy, he watches you, you know. When you don't see it, his eyes follow you differently than they do the rest of us. The words pierced Lucy's heart. Whatever Henry had felt for her, Catherine had successfully poisoned it. At midnight, desperate for solace, Lucy slipped into the greenhouse. The orchids glowed ethereally in the moonlight, their beauty untouched by the human drama unfolding around them. They miss you. Lucy startled at Henry's voice. He stood in the shadows looking haggard, his usual immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. Mr. Montgomery, she acknowledged stiffly. I apologize for intruding. I'll leave. Don't. The word held an emotion she couldn't identify. Please. Pride warred with longing in Lucy's chest. I've been meaning to speak with you. My sister's condition has worsened. She needs specialized medication I can't afford. Henry's expression remained guarded. I see. I know I'm under suspicion, but Tess is innocent in all this. She's suffering. The investigation is ongoing. Lucy looked at him directly. Catherine and Victoria framed me. I overheard them discussing it today. Henry's jaw tightened. Convenient. The coldness in his voice broke something in Lucy. You want evidence? Check the security footage from my bedroom. See who entered when I was at the hospital. I've reviewed the footage. There's a gap during the critical time period. Of course there is. Lucy laughed bitterly. They're not amateurs. You expect me to take your word over theirs? I expected. You to know my character by now. Lucy's voice cracked. But I was foolish. In your world, people are assets or liabilities, not human beings with hearts and dignity. She moved to leave, but Henry caught her arm. The touch sent electricity through her despite everything. Lucy, wait. The greenhouse door burst open. Sophie stood there looking terrified. Help, she gasped, clutching her stomach. Something's wrong with the baby. Henry called his medical team immediately. As they rushed Sophie to the estate's medical suite, Lucy stayed by her side, holding her hand and whispering reassurances. Henry paced outside while the doctors worked, hours. Later, a grim-faced physician emerged. We've stabilized her, but the pregnancy is high risk now. She needs complete bed rest. Sophie asked for Lucy afterward. Stay with me a while. Her voice was weak. Lucy sat beside her. Of course. I heard you and Henry in the greenhouse. Sophie's eyes were knowing. He cares for you. He doesn't trust me, because he's afraid. Sophie adjusted her position carefully. Catherine showed me something yesterday. A photo of a woman she claims is your mother, standing with Henry's grandmother. Lucy's heart raced. What? Your mother was beautiful. You have her eyes. Sophie reached for her bag, pulling out a folded photograph. I took this when Catherine wasn't looking. I thought you should have it. Lucy stared at the faded image of a younger version of her mother, standing proudly beside an elegant older woman in a garden of orchids. They were smiling at each other with genuine affection, hardly the relationship between a thief and her victim. Thank you, Lucy whispered, tucking the photo away. Rest now. Outside, Lucy found Henry waiting. How is she? Resting, Lucy replied. Mr. Montgomery, I'm giving my notice. He looked stunned. What? I can't continue working where I'm not trusted. I'll stay until you find a replacement. Lucy, don't. My sister needs me, she cut him off, and I need to maintain my dignity. As she walked away, hot tears blurred her vision. That night, Lucy contacted a journalist friend from college, requesting help investigating her mother's connection to the Montgomery family. If she was leaving, she at least wanted the truth. 2 days later, Sophie suffered a miscarriage. The entire household was shaken, especially when the young pianist attempted suicide afterward, leaving a note saying she couldn't face her mother's disappointment. Lucy found her in time. As the medical team worked to save Sophie, Lucy confronted Catherine. Are you satisfied now? Your games are destroying lives. Catherine's beautiful face showed no remorse. Collateral damage, nothing personal, just business. In that moment, Lucy understood that Catherine and Henry were more alike than different, both willing to sacrifice human happiness for their goals. The thought broke her heart all over again. When Sophie stabilized, Lucy sat with her through the night. At dawn, Henry appeared in the doorway watching them with unreadable eyes. "A word, Miss Sanders." In the hallway, he looked more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. "I checked the kitchen security footage. It shows Victoria entering the staff wing the day the brooch was found." Lucy absorbed this. "And now you believe me?" "Lucy, Save it," she interrupted quietly. "You believed the worst of me because it was convenient, because people like me are always suspect in your world." Henry flinched. "That's not fair, isn't it?" "Nothing about any of this is fair, Mr. Montgomery. Not for me, not for Sophie, not for the babies you're creating as corporate assets." She walked away, leaving him standing alone in the hallway for once without a calculated response. Lucy's resignation devastated the daily routine at Orchid House. She performed her duties mechanically, avoiding Henry and keeping interactions. With the surrogate mothers strictly professional, only Sophie received her genuine warmth. The young pianist was recovering slowly, both physically and emotionally, from her loss. Henry had publicly cleared Lucy of the theft accusations, resulting in Catherine and Victoria's frosty isolation from the group. But the damage to Lucy's relationship with Henry seemed irreparable. A chasm of hurt and mistrust separated them now. One rainy afternoon, Lucy's journalist friend called with news. "I found something about your mother," Sam said, his voice crackling through the connection. "Ella Sanders wasn't fired for theft. She resigned to protect Lady Montgomery." Lucy's heart raced. "Protect her from what?" "Your mother discovered that the Montgomery family accountant was embezzling funds. When she reported it, he planted jewelry in her quarters to discredit her." "Sound familiar?" "History repeating itself," Lucy whispered. "There's more. Lady Montgomery didn't believe the accusations, but your mother left anyway to avoid scandal. They maintained a private friendship until your mother's death. Why didn't my mother ever tell me?" The record suggests she signed a non-disclosure agreement. "But Lucy, Lady Montgomery was your godmother. She set up a trust for your education that somehow got redirected after her death." Lucy felt dizzy with shock. Who redirected it? The paperwork was signed by Lawrence Blackwell, the Montgomery family attorney. After hanging up, Lucy stared at the photograph Sophie had given her, seeing it with new eyes. Her mother hadn't been a thief. She'd been a trusted friend silenced by legal documents and possibly robbed of her final gift to her daughter. That evening, Lucy found Henry alone in his study. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "About my mother and your grandmother." Henry looked up sharply. "What about them?" Lucy placed the photograph on his desk. "They weren't employer and thieving employee. They were friends." She recounted everything Sam had told her, watching emotions flicker across Henry's face. Confusion, disbelief, and finally a reluctant recognition. "My grandmother mentioned an Ella in her diaries," he admitted. "I never made the connection." "There's more," Lucy continued. "She set up a trust for my education that was redirected after her death by Lawrence Blackwell." Henry's expression hardened. "That's a serious accusation. Check the records yourself." Their eyes locked in silent challenge before Henry reached for his phone, punching in a number. "Lawrence, my office tomorrow morning. Bring all files related to Ella Sanders and any trust established by my grandmother for her daughter." His voice was cold steel. "And Lawrence, I'll know if anything is missing." After hanging up, Henry looked at Lucy with something like regret. "If what you say is true, save your apology," Lucy interrupted. "This isn't about me. It's about my mother's legacy and your grandmother's wishes being corrupted. Why tell me at all you've given your notice?" "Because the truth matters," Lucy said simply, "even when it's inconvenient." Lucy spent the night researching options for Tess's continued care. Without her Orchid House salary, they'd need to move to a smaller apartment, and Lucy would take multiple jobs again. They'd survive. They always did. But Tess's recovery would be more challenging. The following morning, Lucy was summoned to Henry's study, where Lawrence Blackwell sat looking ashen. A stack of folders lay open on the desk. "Ms. Sanders," Henry began formally, "Mr. Blackwell has something to tell you." The elderly lawyer couldn't meet her eyes. "Your mother was highly regarded by Lady Montgomery. The trust established for you was substantial, enough for a complete education and a comfortable start in life." "What happened to it?" Lucy asked, though she already suspected. "I redirected the funds at the request of Charles Montgomery, who..." convinced me Lady Montgomery had changed her mind before her death. Henry's knuckles were white as he gripped his chair. He had no authority to make such a request, and you had no authority to grant it. Charles was very persuasive, Lawrence said weakly. He had documents, forged documents, Henry cut in. We've confirmed that this morning. Lucy felt strangely calm. So my educational trust was stolen. Yes, Lawrence admitted. I deeply regret my role. Henry dismissed the lawyer with icy instructions to prepare full restitution with interest. When they were alone, Henry's composure cracked. Lucy, I can't begin to apologize adequately. My family has wronged yours twice now. 3 times, she corrected quietly. You believed I was a thief, just like your grandmother's accountant claimed my mother was. Henry flinched. I deserved that. Lucy felt no triumph, only sadness. I still intend to leave, Mr. Montgomery. I understand. He hesitated. Your sister's medical care will be fully covered regardless. I've established an irrevocable trust for her treatment. The gesture touched Lucy despite her resolve to remain detached. Thank you. Before she could leave, Henry asked, the greenhouse, one last time. Among the orchids that night, Lucy felt a strange sense of closure. Henry seemed different, less the calculating billionaire, and more the man she'd glimpsed beneath the facade. My grandmother's diaries, he said, offering a leather-bound book. She wrote about your mother often. They shared a love of rare flowers. Lucy accepted it, touched by this connection to her mother's past. I've been thinking about Project Heirs, Henry continued unexpectedly, about what you said, that I view these children as assets, not people. And? You were right, I've approached parenthood as a business transaction. He touched a delicate orchid bloom. My grandfather raised me to believe emotions were weakness. The Montgomery Empire was everything. Is that what you want for your children? Henry looked genuinely troubled. I don't know how to be different. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them before Lucy spoke. I should go. I have arrangements to make for Tess. Lucy, Henry stepped closer, his eyes revealing emotions he couldn't articulate. The greenhouse door burst open. Catherine stood there, her expression thunderous. Touching scene, she sneered. The billionaire and his servant girl among the flowers. Lucy moved to leave, but Catherine blocked her path. Not so fast, I've been doing some research of my own about little Lucy Sanders. That's enough, Catherine, Henry warned. Catherine ignored him. Did you know your precious Lucy has been meeting with reporters, sharing details about Project Heirs despite her confidentiality agreement? That's not true, Lucy protested. Sam was investigating my mother's connection. To the Montgomery family, nothing more. Really? Catherine produced printouts of text messages. These suggest otherwise. Henry took the papers, scanning them with an unreadable expression. These are doctored. Are they? Catherine challenged. Check her phone. Lucy handed over her phone willingly. Look at my actual messages. As Henry scrolled through the exchanges, Lucy saw doubt cloud his eyes again. There are deleted messages, he said quietly, because they were personal, about my mother. Lucy explained, frustration mounting. Nothing about Project Heirs. Catherine smiled triumphantly. Who do you believe, Henry? The woman carrying your children, or the housemaid with a convenient explanation? In that suspended moment, Lucy saw Henry's internal struggle, his instinct to trust her warring with his lifetime of calculated suspicion. I need time to investigate this properly, he finally said. Lucy's heart cracked. After everything, he still doubted her. Don't bother, I'll be gone by morning. As she walked away, bitter tears blurred her vision. Behind her, she heard Catherine's satisfied laugh and Henry calling her name. She didn't turn back. Lucy left Orchid House at dawn, the morning mist shrouding the mansion as she drove away. She didn't look back at the place that had briefly felt like it could be something more than just employment, something that had stirred feelings she'd never expected to have for a man like Henry Montgomery. 2 weeks later, Lucy had moved. Tess into a modest one-bedroom apartment in Queens. Despite Henry's promise of medical care, Lucy had received no documentation confirming the arrangement. She'd taken a job as an assistant manager at a boutique hotel, working grueling hours while continuing to care for her sister. One rainy evening, Lucy returned home to find Tess alarmingly pale. I think I need to go back to the hospital, Tess whispered. In the emergency room, Lucy paced anxiously as doctors examined her sister. When the attending physician approached, his expression was grave. The transplant is showing signs of rejection. We need to start aggressive treatment immediately, Lucy's heart sank. The cost, that's already been addressed, the doctor interrupted. Ms. Sanders is covered under the Montgomery Medical Trust. Treatment begins now. Relief and confusion warred in Lucy's chest. Henry had kept his word despite everything. As Tess stabilized under treatment, Lucy found herself experiencing strange symptoms. Nausea in the mornings, unusual fatigue, heightened sensitivities. She dismissed it as stress until Tess, watching, her sister rushed to the bathroom one morning, voiced the possibility Lucy hadn't considered. "Luce, could you be pregnant?" The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "That's impossible," Lucy whispered. But the home test and then the clinical confirmation proved otherwise. Lucy was 6 weeks pregnant. The timing aligned perfectly with her final weeks at Orchid House, with the night in the greenhouse when Henry had almost kissed her before they were interrupted. The irony was bitter. The man who had calculated and orchestrated pregnancies from carefully selected surrogates had unintentionally conceived a child with the housemaid he couldn't bring himself to fully trust. Lucy sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the ultrasound image. Tell him or not? The question tormented her. Henry deserved to know he had a child, but the baby deserved a father who wouldn't view it as merely an heir to an empire. The decision was made for her when Sophie appeared at her door one rainy afternoon. "He's falling apart," Sophie said, without preamble. "Henry, after you left, everything changed." Lucy ushered her in, concern overriding her surprise. "Are you all right?" Sophie nodded. "Better now. I'm returning to my music career, but I had to see you first to tell you what happened after you left." According to Sophie, Catherine's triumph had been short-lived. Henry had hired a forensic tech expert who recovered her deleted messages, confirming Lucy's innocence. When confronted, Catherine had shown no remorse. "He called a meeting of all the surrogates," Sophie continued, "announced that the project would continue but under new terms. He dismissed Catherine immediately, though she's still receiving care for the pregnancy." "Why are you telling me this?" Sophie's gentle eyes met Lucy's. "Because he asked about you every day, and because he deserves to know about this." She gestured to Lucy's slightly rounded belly. Lucy placed a protective hand over her stomach. "How did you know?" "I recognize the signs," Sophie smiled sadly. "And I see how you touch your belly, the same way I did before I lost my baby." Tears filled Lucy's eyes. "I don't know what to do." The old Henry would have seen this baby as a convenient solution to his inheritance problem, Sophie said carefully. "But the man I've seen these past weeks, he's different. He's questioning everything, his priorities, his methods, his life." After Sophie left, Lucy spent agonizing days weighing her options. One evening, gathering her courage, she called the direct number Henry had once given her for emergencies. To her shock, he answered immediately. "Lucy?" His voice sounded different, rougher, less controlled. "We need to talk," she said simply. In person. They met at a quiet cafe in Manhattan. Henry looked haggard, his usual impeccable appearance slightly disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. "You look terrible," Lucy blurted. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Honest as always. An awkward silence fell between them before they both spoke at once. "I need to tell you, I owe you an—" They stopped, and Henry gestured for her to continue. Lucy took a deep breath. "There's no easy way to say this. I'm pregnant. The baby is yours." Henry went completely still, his face unreadable. "How is that possible? My condition—" "Your doctors said your fertility was declining, not completely gone," Lucy reminded him. "It appears we found that narrow window of possibility." "You're certain it's mine?" The question stung despite its logical basis. "Yes." Henry stared at her, something raw and vulnerable breaking through his composed facade. "A baby," he whispered. "Our baby." "I'm not asking for anything," Lucy said quickly. "I just felt you had the right to know, not asking—" Henry looked bewildered. "Lucy, this changes everything." "It doesn't have to," she countered. "Your project is still underway. You'll have your heirs. Do you think that's all this means to me?" Hurt flashed in his eyes. "That I'd view our child as just another asset. Isn't that how you've approached this entire process?" Henry flinched as if struck. "Yes," he admitted, "until I met you." The raw honesty in his voice caught Lucy off guard. "Lucy, these past weeks without you—" He struggled visibly with expressing emotions that had long been suppressed. "I've questioned everything. The empire my grandfather built and I expanded. What's it worth if I become the same cold, calculating man he was? What legacy am I really creating? Lucy remained silent, afraid to hope. I had you investigated after you left, Henry continued. Not out of suspicion, but because I needed to understand about your mother, my grandmother, the connection between our families. And they were more than employer and employee. They were friends, true friends. My grandmother's diaries are full of Ella's kindness, her wisdom about plants and people. His eyes met Lucy's. You're so much like her according to those pages. Dignified, principled, compassionate despite hardship. Lucy felt tears threatening. Why tell me this now? Because I want you to understand that I see you, really see you, not as an employee or a means to an end, but as the remarkable woman you are. Henry reached for her hand across the table. I don't deserve your forgiveness for doubting you. Not once, but twice. I don't deserve a place in your life or our child's. But I'm asking anyway. Lucy's heart raced, hope and fear battling within her. I need time, Henry. This isn't just about us. There's a child to consider now. Of course, he nodded, withdrawing his hand reluctantly. Whatever you need. As they parted, Henry asked quietly, will you at least let me ensure you and Tess have proper medical care? No strings attached. Lucy nodded, recognizing the gesture for what it was. Not an attempt to buy her forgiveness, but a genuine desire to help. Walking away, Lucy felt the baby flutter within her, an impossibility made real, a miracle neither science nor strategy had planned, a life created not from calculation, but from those rare moments of genuine connection in a greenhouse. Full of rare and beautiful things. 2 months passed. Lucy's pregnancy progressed normally, a small miracle growing within her, while Tess steadily improved under specialized care. Lucy had reluctantly accepted Henry's financial support for medical expenses, but maintained her job at the hotel, clinging to her independence. Henry respected her request for space, communicating primarily through his assistant about medical arrangements. He sent no gifts, made no grand gestures, just ensured Lucy and Tess wanted for nothing in terms of healthcare. One grey December afternoon, Lucy received an unexpected call from Sophie. There's something you need to know, her voice was urgent. Catherine has been making threats. Lucy's hand instinctively covered her growing belly. What kind of threats? She's obsessed with being the mother of Henry's firstborn son. When she discovered your pregnancy through her sources at the hospital, she became unhinged. A chill ran down Lucy's spine. Has she threatened me specifically? Not in so many words, but she's been asking about your schedule, your doctor appointments. Sophie paused. Lucy, she has money and connections. Please be careful. After hanging up, Lucy debated calling Henry but hesitated. Their fragile truce felt too tenuous to test with what might be an overreaction. Instead, she took practical precautions, varying her routes home, being more aware of her surroundings. A week later, Lucy attended her 20-week anatomy scan. The technician moved the ultrasound wand over her belly, stopping suddenly with a smile. Would you like to know the sex? Lucy nodded, throat tight with emotion. It's a boy, perfectly healthy from all indications. A son, Henry's son. The implications weren't lost on Lucy. This child would be the first male heir to the Montgomery Empire. The knowledge felt like both a blessing and a burden. Outside the hospital, Lucy pulled out her phone to call Tess with the news. She noticed a sleek black car parked nearby, but thought nothing of it until Catherine Wellington emerged, her pregnant figure unmistakable despite her elegant coat. Lucy Sanders. Catherine's voice was silk over steel. How convenient running into you here. Lucy tensed, remembering Sophie's warning. What do you want, Catherine? Just a friendly chat. Catherine's smile never reached her cold eyes. I hear congratulations are in order. A boy, isn't it? Lucy's blood ran cold. How did you know that? I have my sources. Catherine stepped closer. You've created quite the complication, Lucy. The housemaid carrying the first Montgomery son. I'm not interested in the Montgomery fortune. Catherine laughed. So noble, so predictable. Her expression hardened. But I don't believe you. No, one walks away from billions. I'm not like you, Lucy said quietly. No, you're worse. At least I'm honest about my ambitions. Catherine's hand moved to her own rounded belly. I'm carrying twins, a boy and a girl. 2 heirs to your one. This isn't a competition. Everything is a competition when it comes to the Montgomery legacy. Catherine's voice dropped to a whisper. Henry may be infatuated with his Cinderella housekeeper now, but men like him always return to their own kind. When he does, Your child will be nothing but an inconvenient reminder of his momentary weakness. Lucy fought to maintain her composure. Are you threatening me? Merely stating facts. Catherine smiled thinly. But consider this friendly advice. Accidents happen to pregnant women all the time, especially those who stand between ambitious people and what they want. Before Lucy could respond, Catherine returned to her car and drove away, leaving Lucy shaking with anger and fear. That night, unable to sleep, Lucy finally called Henry. Catherine confronted me at the hospital, she said without preamble. When? He answered. She knew about the baby being a boy before I told anyone. The silence on the other end was brief but charged. I'll handle it. Henry, she all but threatened me. Pack a bag, his voice was taut with controlled fury. I'm sending security to bring you and Tess to my Manhattan apartment. It's safer. I'm not running to you every time. Lucy, he interrupted. Please. Just until I ensure she can't harm you or our son. The genuine fear in his voice convinced her. 3 hours later, Lucy and Tess were settled in Henry's luxurious Central Park penthouse. He wasn't there. He'd gone directly to confront Catherine. At Orchid House. The following day, as Lucy and Tess were having breakfast, a haggard-looking Henry arrived. Catherine's been removed from the project, he announced. She'll continue receiving medical care at a different facility, with security ensuring she keeps her distance from you. What about her threats? Tess asked protectively. I've made it clear that any action against Lucy or the baby will result in her losing all financial support. His expression was grim. She values money above all else. It's the one threat she'll respond to. Lucy studied him. The dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. You haven't slept. I'll rest when I know you're safe. His eyes met hers, filled with emotions he struggled to articulate. The baby, Sophie mentioned it's a boy. Lucy nodded, something softening inside her at his restrained response. Yes, healthy and developing perfectly. Henry swallowed hard. Thank you for letting me know. His careful distance, his respect for her boundaries despite clearly wanting more, touched Lucy deeply. This wasn't the calculating billionaire she'd first met. This was a man trying to become something better. You can see the ultrasound pictures, she offered. If you'd like. The look of wonder on Henry's face as he studied the images of their son broke something open in Lucy's heart. Whatever complicated history lay between them, this child connected them irrevocably. Lucy, Henry began hesitantly, I know you need time, but I want you to know. A deafening crash interrupted him as the penthouse windows shattered inward. Lucy screamed as Henry threw himself over her protectively, shielding her from the spray of glass. Tess dove for cover behind the sofa. Security rushed in, weapons drawn. Through the broken window, Lucy saw a mechanical drone hovering before it, sped away. Are you hurt? Henry demanded, checking Lucy frantically for injuries. I'm fine, she gasped, heart pounding. Tess? I'm okay, her sister called shakily. The drone had dropped a package that lay among the shards of glass. Bomb squad specialists were called, but the package contained only a chilling message. No Montgomery heir will take what belongs to me. Catherine's handwriting was unmistakable. Henry's face turned to stone. That's it. I'm moving you both to my private island until the baby is born. It's the only place I can guarantee your safety. Henry, we can't just disappear for months, Lucy protested weakly, still shaken by the attack. Can't we? His voice was raw with fear and fury. She tried to kill you, to kill our son. She's trying to scare us? She succeeded, Henry admitted, taking Lucy's trembling hands in his. I've never been more terrified in my life. Not of losing my company, not of Charles taking control, of losing you, both of you. The naked honesty in his voice silenced Lucy's objections. For the first time, she allowed herself to see the depth of Henry's feelings that had evolved beyond his calculating nature. Okay, she whispered, the island. But just until we figure out how to handle Catherine permanently. Henry's relief was palpable. He pulled out his phone, arranging immediate transportation. As security helped them pack essential items, Lucy caught sight of her reflection in a remaining shard of window glass, her face pale, eyes wide, hand protectively covering her belly, where their son grew, unaware of the danger swirling around him. In that fractured reflection, Lucy saw the truth of her situation. For better or worse, she was bound to the Montgomery legacy now. The question wasn't whether she could escape it, but whether she and Henry could transform it into something worthy of the child they'd created. That night, aboard Henry's private jet, heading to his Caribbean island, Lucy watched him speaking, quietly with his security team, coordinating protection for their unborn child with the same precision he once applied to corporate takeovers. "He's different with you," Tess observed softly. "The way he looks at you when you're not watching, that's not calculation, Luce. That's love." Lucy placed her hand on her belly, feeling her son's strong kicks. "I know," she admitted finally. "And that's what terrifies me most of all." Paradise became a gilded cage. Henry's private island off St. Lucia offered breathtaking beauty and absolute security. But as weeks stretched into months, Lucy felt increasingly restless. Now 7 months pregnant, her son kicked and rolled within her, strong and active, blissfully unaware of the turmoil surrounding his impending arrival. The relationship between Lucy and Henry evolved cautiously. They shared meals, walked the pristine beaches, and gradually rebuilt trust in conversations that stretched late into the night. He'd revealed vulnerabilities she never expected: his lonely childhood, his grandfather's emotional neglect, his fear of becoming the same cold patriarch. "I've spent my life calculating risks and returns," Henry admitted one evening as they watched the sunset. "Even Project Heirs was just another transaction to secure my legacy." "And now?" Lucy asked. Henry's eyes traveled to her rounded belly. "Now I understand what my grandmother tried to tell me before she died. Legacy isn't about buildings or stock portfolios. It's about the values you pass on, the love you leave behind." Lucy wanted to believe him, wanted to trust this transformation, but doubt lingered, planted by years of self-preservation and Catherine's poisonous words. Tess, however, had blossomed on the island. Her health improved dramatically in the warm climate, and she'd formed an unexpected friendship with Dr. Elizabeth Parker, one of the Project Heirs surrogates, who had requested reassignment to the island after learning of Catherine's threats. "Elizabeth says Catherine's become completely unhinged," Tess reported one morning. "She's been claiming the Montgomery fortune belongs to her children alone, that your baby is somehow illegitimate despite being conceived naturally." Lucy shivered despite the tropical heat. "Has there been any actual contact?" "No. The restraining order is holding, but Henry's security team is monitoring her closely." That afternoon, Henry received an urgent call from Lawrence Blackwell. Lucy watched his expression darken as the conversation progressed. "When?" he demanded. "How many of them?" "I see. Increase security immediately. I'm flying back tonight." After hanging up, Henry turned to Lucy, his face grim. "Catherine has filed a lawsuit claiming my mental incompetence in the management of Montgomery Tech. She's gathered support from 6 board members, including my cousin Charles. Can she do that? It's a desperate move, but potentially damaging. I need to return to New York immediately to handle it." Fear clutched at Lucy's heart. "Is it safe?" "For me, yes." Henry's eyes met hers. "But I want you and Tess to remain here until the baby is born. Catherine is unpredictable, and I won't risk either of you." Lucy felt torn between understanding his concern and resenting his unilateral decision. "And what if she succeeds? What if you lose the company?" A strange calm settled over Henry's features. "Then I lose it. The company doesn't matter compared to you and our son." The sincerity in his voice silenced Lucy's objections. This wasn't the Henry Montgomery who had coldly calculated the creation of heirs to secure his empire. This was a man who had discovered something more valuable than corporate control. That night, as Henry prepared to leave, Lucy found him in his study, staring at a photo of his grandmother. "She would have liked you," he said without turning. "She valued authenticity over status, though few knew it." "I wish I could have met her," Lucy replied softly. Henry turned, his expression vulnerable. "Lucy, if anything happens in New York, if Catherine and Charles succeed, they won't," she assured him, surprising herself with her conviction. "But if they do, know that I've already established trusts for you, Tess, and our son. You'll be taken care of regardless of what happens to me or Montgomery Tech." "I don't care about the money, Henry." "I know." He stepped closer. "That's one of the countless reasons I've fallen in love with you." The words hung between them, the first time either had spoken of love. Before Lucy could respond, Henry leaned down and kissed her gently. She felt herself responding, all the complicated emotions of the past year crystallizing into this moment of connection. "Come back to us," she whispered when they parted. "Nothing could keep me away." 3 weeks passed with Henry in New York, fighting Catherine's legal maneuvers. Lucy received daily updates. The situation was messy, but ultimately tilting in Henry's Favor as board members recognized Catherine's instability. Then, without warning, communication stopped. One day stretched into two with no word from Henry. Lucy's calls went unanswered, messages unreturned. On the third day, as Lucy's anxiety reached breaking point, a corporate helicopter approached the island. Lucy waddled to the landing pad as quickly as her pregnant body allowed, expecting, hoping to see Henry. Instead, Sophie emerged, her face ashen. "What's happened?" Lucy demanded, fear clutching her heart. Sophie took her hands. "Henry's been shot." The world tilted precariously. Is he? He's alive," Sophie quickly assured her. "But it's serious." Catherine somehow evaded security and confronted him after a board meeting with a gun. She claimed if she couldn't have the Montgomery fortune for her children alone, no one would. Lucy swayed, her hands protectively covering her belly. "I need to go to him. The doctors say he's stable but critical. He's been asking for you." Within hours, Lucy was airborne. On a medical transport plane, equipped to handle any pregnancy complications, Tess insisted on accompanying her, refusing to let her sister face this alone. Upon landing in New York, they were rushed through a private entrance at Manhattan Memorial Hospital. Security guards flanked every corridor leading to Henry's room. Lucy gasped at the sight of him, pale, intubated, surrounded by beeping machines. His right shoulder was heavily bandaged, and according to the doctor, the bullet had narrowly missed his heart. "He's heavily sedated," the physician explained, "but he's been fighting to regain consciousness since they brought him in." Kept saying one name, Lucy. Tears streamed down her face as she took his hand. "I'm here, Henry, I'm right here." Throughout that night, Lucy refused to leave his side. She talked to him continuously, telling him about their son's latest movements, about the names she was considering, about their future together. Sometime near dawn, his fingers twitched in hers. "Lucy," he whispered hoarsely, when his eyes finally opened. "Don't try to talk," she urged. "You're going to be okay." His eyes moved to her rounded belly, relief flooding his features as he weakly raised a hand to touch the place where their son grew. "Catherine," he managed to ask. "In custody," Lucy assured him. "She can't hurt anyone anymore." Over the next days, as Henry regained strength, the full story emerged. Catherine had smuggled a gun into Montgomery Tower, intending to kill Henry and then herself. Her twins had been born prematurely just days before her attack, a boy and girl, both healthy but requiring NICU care. In her distorted thinking, she believed eliminating Henry would ensure her children's claim to the Montgomery fortune. "What happens to her children?" Lucy asked as they discussed the situation. "They're innocent in all this," Henry replied, his voice gaining strength daily. "I've arranged for their care and education with trust funds comparable to the other project and heirs' children." Lucy squeezed his hand, moved by his compassion despite everything Catherine had done. A week after the shooting, as Henry continued his recovery, Lucy woke in the middle of the night with a sharp pain gripping her abdomen. She gasped, realizing her hospital room bed was wet. "Tess," she called urgently to her sister, sleeping in the recliner nearby. "It's time." 14 hours later, Michael Montgomery Sanders entered the world with a powerful cry that echoed through the delivery room. Despite being 3 weeks early, he was perfectly healthy. 7 pounds, 3 ounces of new life. When the nurses placed him in Lucy's arms, she marveled at his tiny features, Henry's strong jaw, her dark curls. This miracle they'd created together, against all medical probability. Henry, still recovering but insistent on being present, was wheeled into the room shortly after. The expression on his face when he first saw his son transcended any emotion Lucy had ever witnessed in him. Awe, love, protectiveness, and profound joy mingled with tears that fell unashamed down his cheeks. "He's perfect," Henry whispered, carefully cradling Michael with his uninjured arm, just like his mother. In that moment, watching them together, Lucy finally allowed herself to believe in the transformation she'd witnessed, from calculating billionaire to loving father, from man obsessed with legacy to one who understood its true meaning. "I love you," she said simply, the words she'd held back for so long finally finding their way to her lips. "Both of you." Henry's eyes met hers over their son's tiny head. "You've given me more than an heir, Lucy. You've given me a heart." Outside the hospital room, the world waited with its complications. The remaining Project Heir's surrogate mothers nearing delivery, Catherine facing criminal charges, a corporation restructuring with new priorities. But here, in this moment, something new had begun. A family founded not on calculation or control, but on love that had survived the most unlikely of beginnings. 5 years later, the sun cast golden rays across the sprawling gardens of New Dawn Ranch in Vermont. Lucy stood on the wide porch, watching Henry chase their laughing 4-year-old son Michael across the lawn. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, where their second miracle grew, a daughter they'd already named Ella after Lucy's mother. Life had taken unexpected turns since that day in the hospital when Michael was born. Henry had shocked the business world by completely restructuring Montgomery Tech and its priorities. Instead of fighting to maintain total control, he distributed the company's ownership in a revolutionary way. 30% to a charitable foundation focused on medical research and treatment for children with kidney disease, 30% divided among the 9 children born from Project Heirs in trust funds that would mature when they reached adulthood. And he retained 40%, enough to guide the company's direction without the consuming obsession that had once defined him. The corporate offices in Manhattan had been traded for this peaceful countryside estate, where the extended and unconventional family gathered regularly. The children born from Project Heirs visited frequently, creating a unique but surprisingly functional blended family. Most of the surrogate mothers had maintained some relationship with their children, though the arrangements varied. Sophie, who had become a close friend, now directed the Montgomery Foundation, channeling her experience with loss into helping others. She'd found purpose in ensuring that families like Lucy and Tess never had to choose between medical care and financial ruin. Tess, now fully recovered, had fallen in love with one of Henry's former executives who'd followed him to the new, more humanized version of Montgomery Tech. Their wedding was planned for the following spring. Catherine remained the one dark cloud in their story. Sentenced to a psychiatric facility after pleading insanity, she had no contact with her twins, who were being raised by her sister, a kind woman who brought the children to visit New Dawn Ranch several times a year. Henry and Lucy made sure the twins never felt the stigma of their mother's actions, welcoming them as part of their unusual extended family. "Penny for your thoughts," Henry said, appearing beside Lucy with Michael riding on his shoulders. "Just thinking about how far we've come," she replied, leaning into his embrace. "From Project Heirs to this." Henry's eyes softened as he looked out at the gathering of children playing on the lawn. 9 remarkably different youngsters, united by their father's DNA and the strange circumstances of their conception. "I was so wrong about what legacy meant," he said quietly. "I thought it was about control and continuation of power." "And now?" Lucy asked, though she knew the answer. "Now I know it's about the values they carry forward, the love they share with the world." Henry placed his hand over hers on her belly. "Our daughter won't inherit an empire built on cold calculation. She'll inherit one rebuilt on compassion." Michael squirmed to be let down, racing off to join the other children as they gathered around Tess, who was organizing a game. "Do you ever regret it?" Lucy asked. "Giving up so much control of the company?" The old Henry Montgomery would have fought to his last breath to maintain complete ownership. "The old Henry Montgomery was a lonely man who measured his worth in dollars and deals," he replied thoughtfully. "I don't miss him at all." As the afternoon light faded to evening, the extended family gathered for dinner at long tables set up on the lawn. Children and adults mingled together, the surrogate mothers who had chosen to remain involved, Henry's reformed cousin Charles with his new wife, Sophie with her pianist fingers now adorned with an engagement ring, and at the center, Lucy, and Henry with Michael between them. Looking around at this unconventional family created through the strangest of circumstances, Lucy felt a profound sense of gratitude. What had begun as a cold business arrangement, Project Heirs, had transformed into something beautiful through pain, growth, and ultimately, love. Later that night, after the guests had departed and Michael was tucked in bed, Lucy and Henry stood in the nursery they'd prepared for baby Ella. "I never thanked you," Henry said suddenly. "For what?" "For not giving up on me, for seeing something in me worth saving when all I saw was a legacy to protect." Lucy took his hand, placing it again on her belly where their daughter kicked strongly. "You saved yourself, Henry. You chose to be more than your grandfather's heir. You chose to be human." As they stood together in the moonlight, the man who had once calculated every aspect of life and the woman who had taught him its incalculable value understood the true meaning of legacy. Not an empire of wealth, but a heritage of love that would echo through their children and beyond. What's the life-changing lesson in this story? That true worth isn't measured in bank accounts or business empires, but in our capacity to grow beyond our limitations and open our hearts to authentic connection. Henry Montgomery thought he could control everything through careful calculation, but discovered that life's most precious gifts, love, family, personal transformation, can't be planned or purchased. Sometimes the most beautiful journeys begin with the most unlikely circumstances. Lucy and Henry's story reminds us that we all have the capacity to change, to become more than our past, more than our mistakes, more than the roles we've been assigned. Is there an area in your life where you've been calculating rather than feeling? A relationship where you've been guarding your heart instead of opening it to possibilities? Perhaps it's time to step beyond the safety of control and into the messy, beautiful vulnerability of true connection. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss another life-changing story. And don't forget to check out our latest video. A millionaire invited a cleaner to a meeting with his partners as a joke for another emotional journey that will leave you inspired to transform your own life. Remember, the most precious legacies aren't built of money or power, but of love that continues long after we're gone.